Well, I just knew it. I knew that you got the memo. I knew that you've been reading our Star Press newsletter, the paper version or the electronic copies that come to your home in your email inbox. And you noticed that today is a big Christian holiday. It's the Transfiguration of the Lord Sunday, or Transfiguration Day for short. See, if I had my bulletin with me or could find it, it says so right here on the top corner of your bulletin. Transfiguration of the Lord. Right? So, I'm going to go out on a limb and take this opportunity to thank you in advance for all of the greeting cards and all of the boxes of chocolate that I know are going to be flooding my desk after worship today. I'm so looking forward to reading all of your sentiments to me. Thinking about you on the Transfiguration of the Lord Sunday. Just wanted to be in touch on Transfiguration Day. Hope you're basking in the glow of God's love. Or for those of you who like a little snarkier kind of card, Transfiguration is your day to shine, Pastor. Don't be shy. Pull out that white polyester leisure suit. Well, I hope that that sheepish look on your faces doesn't mean what I think it does. You have gone and forgotten Transfiguration Day? From the looks on your faces, I'm not going to get any Transfiguration of the Lord greeting cards, am I? And furthermore, the only chocolate candies I might get this Transfiguration Day are the ones that you got from Walgreens for 75% off that were left over from Valentine's Day. You're trying to tell me and let me down easy like my friend Tyrone did this past week at the YMCA. He turned to me from the elliptical machine that he was on right next to me, and he said, "Hey, John, what you going to preach on this Sunday?" And I turned back to Tyrone and I said, "The Transfiguration of the Lord." And Tyrone quickly started speeding up, and he looked down and it looked like he was trying desperately to will that machine to get as far away from me as was humanly possible. But whether you remembered it or not, whether you love it or hate it, it's here again, the Transfiguration of the Lord Sunday. Every year, on the Sunday before the beginning of Lent, the church gathers around Jesus and his three favorite disciples, Peter, James, and John, and we hear how Jesus and his friends walk up to the top of Mount Tabor, and then the pyrotechnics begin. Jesus is transfigured. He is transformed. He is metamorphosed. He is changed. His clothes turn dazzling white. He meets with Moses and the prophet Elijah, and God's voice speaks, "This is my son, my beloved. Listen to him." And poof, as quickly as the transformation takes place, it's all over. From the very beginning, Christ followers have understood Jesus' transfiguration as a momentary glimpse in and through Jesus of who he really is. He's the Messiah. He's God's Son. He is the Savior of the world. This mountaintop experience, which, by the way, is the reason why we get the phrase mountaintop experience. This mountaintop experience comes at the exact moment that Jesus begins to go in a different direction from what his disciples had expected. From this time forward, Jesus adamantly insists that the Son of Man must go to Jerusalem and suffer all manner of things and be rejected and killed, and on the third day be raised again. Our Ash Wednesday service this week will serve as a reminder of this serious side of Christianity. It's no accident that the glory of the Transfiguration precedes the somberness, the deadly seriousness of all the days that are to come. As it was for the disciples, the brightness is intended to give us just enough light to find our way through the challenging days ahead. Not too long ago, I read about a pastor. It figures that he was on the West Coast. This West Coast pastor decided that the season of Lent was too much of a downer for his congregation. So he wrote in his church's newsletter, "I think we need to start thinking of the word Lent as an acronym, L-E-N-T. Let's eliminate negative thinking." Well, I am all for positive thinking. But positive thinking just doesn't seem to cut it for me when we're faced with the forces of darkness that are so very real in our world. You can think positively all you want to, but that won't do much about the brokenness of the world. No matter how positive you are, it will not stop the Syrian bombs being dropped by its government on its own people. It won't change the fact that thousands are being beaten and killed and raped daily in tribal violence all over sub-Saharan Africa. And positive thinking alone won't heal you of cancer or give you a job or provide you with affordable medical insurance. Something more than a sunny disposition is required to overcome the sins, the brokenness, the evils of the world. You can think positively all you want, but the power of addiction is not going to go to its knees because of a can-do approach to life. Alcoholism, drug addiction, sexual addiction, abusive behavior, none of it will be diminished one little bit by simply wishing it away. You and I need a power that comes from another world, another source. We need the power released into this world in Jesus the Christ. And that's the vision that you and I are invited to see and experience again each and every year on Transfiguration Day. When you and I climb up the mountain with Peter, James, and John and Jesus, we find the curtain pulled back. We see the depth of our need and the strength of the Spirit of God fully present in the person of Jesus. We hear the divine voice speaking through the clouds and confusion and anxiety that wrap themselves around us. We see in this mountaintop experience heaven coming down to earth. You and I get a glimpse of what is to come. We know that the love and light and grace and healing power and presence and brilliance and security and hope and peace of God, of Christ, is right here with us. In this moment, in this place, in this time. For one split second, for one shining moment, Christ is our all in all. Well, that's certainly what happened to me on the first Sunday of October, World Communion Sunday it was, 1983, at Davidson College Presbyterian Church during a Sunday morning worship service with communion. Amidst the sweat of a warm October day in what was then an unair-conditioned church sanctuary, the choir's anthem was okay, a little off tune. The pastor actually had a rather boring sermon. Sacrament of communion, fifth Sunday of a freshman year at college. It was then that I had a moment of transforming glory. It was then that God punched into my life. In a split second, I felt Christ's powerful presence embracing me, enfolding me, accepting me, giving me peace. I felt myself awakening to what is real, what is eternal, what is true. A transformation took place in my life from its very roots. And I stopped my trajectory as a pre-law student and replaced it with the vision of service as a pastor in the Presbyterian Church. It's an experience that frightened me and confounded my parents, but it's a fundamental change that I've never looked back on or regretted since. For one shining moment, I felt that God had waked me up to what is true. And I'd like to tell you that that moment has been repeated almost daily since. But it hasn't. Yes, I have had other transfiguration days, other transformative moments, but they have been relatively few and far between. And yes, that probably says much more about your pastor and my openness to the presence of God in my life than about God's actual willingness to change me for the good. But each year on this special holiday, I'm convinced that this is part of what happened to Peter and James and John. They woke up to what was real. It was terrifying for them at first. You can imagine how three who were former fishermen, whose lives had been mostly a matter of mending nets, would react to seeing Jesus in a new light. I wonder if you've ever had an experience in which the scales fell off your eyes and you saw someone for who they really were in your life. Perhaps a kid in your family who you've told to do his homework about 36 times in the course of one evening. He's about to drive you crazy and you're about to drive him crazy. And then all of a sudden, you look at him and you see the person that he is, the beauty of his spirit and the promise of his future, the tenderness of his existence, and you're changed. That's the kind of thing that's possible in this world. You and I become alive in new ways. We see life and people with new eyes. Yes, the disciples want to save the moment and to savor it over and over and over again. Peter said, let's build 3 tents here on the mountain. Let's freeze this moment. Nothing ever has to change. We'll live on this mountaintop forever. But Jesus says no. God moments of clarity, enlightenment, and bliss bless our lives. But the real work is yet to be done down the mountain, after the moment of transformation, back in the places where people are suffering, back in the places where they're longing for hope. But here's the great thing. Once you've had a life-changing experience with Jesus Christ, it will mark you and change you. It will mess with your sensibilities, and you will live in the world in a different way. Sure, you'll see the same things. You'll connect with the same people. But your eyes are different. Your ears are different. You know that God is in charge at the base of all existence. And that's really all that matters. Well, I thank God for those surprising, transformative moments when God breaks in and you and I just get it. We get something that we didn't get before. It's not that you and I make a willful choice to see things in a different way. It's that through the power of the Holy Spirit, you and I are given a glimpse of something that's more real. And our whole way of being and working and thinking and living is transformed. I think of how this congregation for a number of years saw only through the eyes of survival. Will we make it? That was the question. And now God has given us a new way to see. There are all sorts of new ideas and hopes about tomorrow popping up. We're hearing in a new way the voices of our neighbors calling us to mission, calling us to service, calling us to growth. We are being changed for good. Well, I remember now of a story, Will Willimon, longtime dean of chapel at Duke University and now United Methodist Church bishop, tells about a boyhood friend of his who in his adult life hit rock bottom. He had been a prestigious attorney, and he had fallen into the depths of alcohol addiction.